Welcome to the channel 12 Step Guide with Troy O. Today we are going to start step 3, part 1, out of the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book 1939. Before we start the reading today, I hope to expand your mind. Now, that's different than inflating your head. You're wonderful and all that, and that's probably not happening today. But to expand your mind, that's important to hear this step. There's a lot of information here. If I can get you to take step 3, a wonderful thing happens. Then we can start step 4. So I have some questions, couple of questions. Anyway, what is step 3? When did Bill W. take step 3? The primary author of Alcoholics Anonymous. What do you think God's will is for you? Or what isn't it? I have another question that I'd like to answer first. But first, step 3. What is step 3 in Alcoholics Anonymous? Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. So what's that all about? And I'd made a point before, all 12-step programs are based on the original material for content. So this applies to other 12-step programs. We're going to make some minor adjustments along the way, depending on the jumping off point from where we might have been affected, what our problem is, etc. We'll get into that a little more in this session. But let me ask you a question, think for yourself here. So if you decided to go to a 12-step meeting or equivalent, a council or something, we're trying to expand this for to be all-inclusive, and admitted a problem, decided the group or equivalent can help with the problem, decide to let them help, and are willing to participate. Is it possible that you, without knowing, may have already taken steps 1, 2, and 3? Do you agree with that or not? So let's we're going to do the big book today, but I'd like to just touch on the step book that come out 13 years later, little reading. So this applies to step 3. This is Bill's thinking here. Every man and woman who has joined AA and intends to stick has, without realizing it, made a beginning on step 3. Isn't it true that in all matters touching upon alcohol, each of them has decided to turn his or her life over to the care, protection, and guidance of Alcoholics Anonymous? Already, a willingness has been achieved to cast out one's own will and one's own ideas about the alcohol problem in favor of those suggested by AA. And just to further that, if you go into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, you admit you're an alcoholic and that your life's unmanageable and that the group can help, well, that sounds like step 1 and 2. Don't be afraid to get into the higher steps. You can always go back and advance the lower. And we'll make sure you have good information to be able to understand it. So before we get into the reading, I want to expand your mind. I really want you to be able to understand and be prepared for the reading when we get there. So what's this step about? I believe it's about pursuing power to help you. Because in step 1 there, you're powerless, and well, that don't feel good. So maybe there's some tools out there that can make you powerful, and we'll get into that in the reading, what that can look like. And I also believe it's about abandoning things like selfishness. And we're going to understand that more in what that might look like and why. So I had used an analogy, and this will be the end of this analogy. about a shovel. So in step one, you self-will, you uh, decided digging a hole's the answer. So you're using your hands, that's self-will to dig the hole. And then the rains come, and that's the relapse, fills in the hole. And then you come to believe that a shovel, an external item, can help you dig this hole better. You just believe it will help. That's step two. And it'll because the hole maybe will stop filling in. Now at this point, the intellectual will say, "Yeah, but the rain will come and still fill in the hole," and they're right. What are they saying? You're still very vulnerable. So along comes step three, and what happens? What can happen? Well, the ground cracks right open, and a whole big, massive crater opens up, and it just swallows all the water. Oh, that's a fable. What am I saying here? The obsession to drink has been removed. So that's the end of that one. Well, let's pursue another one. How about this one? If you don't like that one, what's it look like during active drinking? Now, if you're in another program, some of this is just going to have to translate a different way. Is relying on God in a can not working for you? God in a baggie, in a shot, pipe, walking through the front door, habitually pissed off or drunk, drugged, etc.? It's like a commercial. So I touched on God in a can before, some external thing that is a higher power. It has the power, you put it in your system, it has the power to influence how you feel. It changes you somehow. And I think it's a good example. And what might, see, we're making some correlations. What say a higher power? You believe in God, and you trust God also, or maybe you don't, and or you're struggling, but you can believe in the meetings. They say, oh no, I don't need any of that. So what are you believing in then? So if in pursuit of active addiction, let's say the disciples in the meeting are the other people that are you're working with, they're working with you, you're all pursuing the same goal of sobriety or relieving the problem, whatever you well, for the alcoholic, the disciples, who are they? Well, the bartender, the clerk at the store. Certainly, we covered the God in a can, and these pursuits that are changing you. You what step one, two, and three look like for you? Well, you believe that alcohol is going to make you feel better. Your mind says, "Have a drink, you'll feel better." The body backs it up with a craving, and you come to believe that it's alcohol is going to help. You head on down to the bar or wherever, and you get that, and you consume it. And because you think somehow this is going to make your life better. So there's step one, two, and three for the active addict. It's a negative pursuit. I'm just trying to slow this down for you to show you how these steps might apply in various concepts. So replacing that alcohol with some sort of power, okay, replacing it with the meetings, filling up your time, certainly the spiritual, if that's something you can pursue, and in other avenues, and we're going to get into the higher steps. So I hope that you found that helpful. Certainly, depending on what's going on, like the ACOA adult child, you know, that may not be so clear for you because, well, this has all happened in the past. Well, maybe you're living in the past and you don't even realize it. Maybe you long since forgot what 2 plus 2 was, and all you're running around with is 4. Might be time to go back and see what 2 plus 2 is, lack of trust, things like that. Let's pursue another piece before we get started. What might prayer look like for those that have prayed, not the outcome, the prayer? And so, what I want to do is I want to pursue some real prayer that you may have pursued in the past. Maybe you were in a tornado praying to help me with this. Maybe a child was sick and you're praying to help me with this unreserved, right? You're really praying. You know what that feels like. Maybe you were in a car accident or something else. Someone else was hurt or a child's birth, on and on. What did that prayer look like when you really, really, assuming you've ever prayed, and most I believe have, what does that look like? The real serious prayer, not the maybe every day I pray, but this real stuff. This intensity on this stuff is heavy duty. And so what we're trying to find is, what are you capable of? Who are you? What are you capable of? Because we're going to visit that question during the reading, and it's better to know what you're capable of. And the reason for that is, look, there's three statements, words, phrases Bill has that I've struggled with them. The human in me, my relationship with my higher power is great. It's generally always has been, but I'm still human. So let's define these three words a little bit. So when we get there, you know what you're capable of. You don't have to try to be more than what you generally have been capable of. You always could get better at something, right? You get out there and ski, and maybe you get better at skiing, tennis, whatever it is. You can get better at it, but right at the moment, you push ups, you can do 21 maybe, or 10 or whatever. Maybe you can do more. You keep working at it. Just an example, whatever fits you. Abandon ourselves to Him. That's one of the ones. To abandon ourselves to Him, it sounds like 100%. Yet we strive for progress, not perfection, Bill says. Right? These are guidelines. So, but that one sounds pretty sharp. Voice it without reservation. Another one. So you can't probably at this moment voice it beyond what you may have been capable of. And that's okay. Let it be that way. You can always get better. Place myself unreservingly. That sounds like no reserve, 100%. So we're going to visit those, and we're also going to see what Bill did. Bill, said to make some suggestions, but because there's a question, when did Bill take step 3? So we're going to start the reading in the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book, 1939. It's going to be, I've got the original version book, but it's going to be page 73 in this. It's going to be page 60 in the newer book. In step 3, in how it works, this is the only writing that Bill wrote with a stutter. What do I mean by that? Well, twice Bill appears to begin step 3. They're a little different, but at first, if you're looking in the book, you could easily miss this if you're just looking where it says, being convinced we were at step 3. Well, you might miss it if you were to be looking real fast and say later, a couple pages in, we were now at step 3. So I want you to know that so you don't miss what's being said here. So we're going to start page 72 in this book, or 59 in the other. Right after A, B, and C. A, that we were alcoholic, could not manage our own lives. That's step 1. Probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. That's part of step 2, that God could or would if He were sought. That's the other half of step 2. So how do we know we're at step 3? Well, it says being convinced in italicized. I call them squigglies. Being convinced we were at step 3. which is that we decided to turn our will and life over to God as we understood Him. Just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do? So I'm going to read this, but I'm going to also offer some commentary along the way to expand the mind of the reader. The first requirement was that we be convinced that any life run on self will could hardly be successful. So that's us doing just our own will. On that basis, we're almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. So here's an interesting thing. Most people, we're not talking about the alcoholics in here, but right now, most people, we're going to talk about most people for a whole page here. So we're not just limiting this to the alcoholic, just understanding Bill's perceptions of life and what his experiences have been. And this is when we're going to look at an actor in a play. You watch an actor on TV, and explain that. We'll find you where you are, whatever the problem is, whether it's yeah, you got a variety of drug addiction, sex issues, overeating, bulimic, cutter, anger, alcoholic, financial debt, gambling, codependent, marriage issues, depression, mental health, bipolar. You bear some responsibility there. The ACOA, living in the past, tobacco, compulsive liar, victim. Be sure each person hears the whole concept along the way. We'll get into that more in step 4. So most people try to live by self-propulsion, on our own direction, energy. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wishes, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. That's having high moral standards. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest, and self sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. So he's just kind of sizing up the human. What usually happens, the show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself some more. He becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is the basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion, the false belief, that he can wrest, W-R-E-S-T, that he can wrest satisfaction, that is, to force satisfaction, and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? So this is life's efforts. A lot of different people got their hand in the pot with a whole lot of different avenues. We'll get into that one. Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, that's overly focused on self, their own needs, excluding others. Now, he said most people, he didn't say all people. Maybe you fit, maybe you don't, maybe you fit in part. As people, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays, he is like the retired businessman. Now this isn't okay. He's going to use some examples, and we're going to look at these right after. So you've got the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation. he's got a jumping off point that he's pursuing this thinking from. So the next person, or the minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. He's got a belief system and he's making these judgments based on this belief system. Politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia, all would be wonderful if the rest of the world would only behave. They've got an idea how the rest of the world should behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him. So you got a thief that thinks that he's been wronged, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. We're still talking about, though, all people. Whatever their protestations, whatever their claim, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, and our self pity? It's an interesting, important question because we're going to visit that in step 4. So, this jumping off point, people have they've formed opinions about life, and so they judge others based on that. Maybe are you gay or straight, the color of your skin, how you talk, rich or poor, where you live, what your interests are, what you think, what your religion is, on and on and on. This is a foundation. But that you judge others from. That's all. It's just each one of these has that. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear. Again, we're going to visit some stuff in step 4. Self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, without a reason. Sometimes it seems like they hurt us. But we always find that at some time in the past we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic, now we're going to talk about the alcoholic, is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of selfishness. I want to say it again. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of selfishness. I can't tell you how many times in the program I heard people say this is a selfish program, and I'm here to tell you, no, it isn't. And why is that? We must, or it kills us, one way or another. God makes that possible, and there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without Him. Many of us had moral, right and wrong, and philosophical convictions to do with knowledge, reality, existence, that sort of thing, galore. So we were loaded up on that, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. So, you know, you thought and how you judge everybody else and all that, but you might not be living that up to that yourself even. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. So we're going to be replacing this self-centeredness with something, a higher power. You line up the meetings in the 12 step, and maybe beyond that you can see God too, and you can embrace the whole thing. If your glasses can't see that far, maybe they can at least see the people out there that can help you. You're changing, you're opening your heart, you're caring about others that are in the same fight you are. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter, in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal, we are his agents. He is the father, we are his children. So most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new triumphant arc, this winning door that we're going to walk through, which we pass to freedom. And again, the meetings themselves, use all the higher powers that you can. Open your mind. At beginning is very important. Open your mind and your heart. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided that we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. There's a change in our perception. Something is going to have to change in us if we want to get sober. That's what he's saying. Worked for me. Here I am, right before your eyes. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn. Something major has changed in our personality. Now here's that second one here. We were now at step 3. This is the second time the mention. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him. And I'm going to, there's the these and the thous. I'm just going to say it without those. God, I offer myself to you. Do with me and build with me as you will. Relieve me of selfish self-seeking that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties. A victory over them will bear witness to those I would carry the message of your love, your power, and your way of life. May I do your will always. Now, we thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. So there's that utterly, that 100%. We found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife. So he's suggesting you might take it with someone else. We're going to also look what he did, a friend, spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional so long as we express the idea, voicing it without reservation. There's the second use of that, without reservation. This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, in effect sometimes a very great one was felt at once. You do the best you can, and you move on. So what did Bill do? Well, in Bill's story, step 3, page 23, 13 pages up for the other. There I humbly offered myself to God as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, that without him I was lost. It appears Bill was alone when he did this, because later it says, my schoolmate visited me. He was in the hospital when he took step 3. It appears he was alone. There was no build-up or anyone else there, but that's a kind of thing a religious person might have people to, or someone else that goes to church and might find it very helpful to take it with some understanding person. Someone else may be alone. Either way, you open your heart up to a higher power. I hope you found this helpful.
If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when new content is added. Also, you can support the channel 12-Step Guide with Troyo by donating through PayPal to hsworldservice@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening. Many in recovery find Reinhold Niebuhr's Serenity Prayer helpful. It can be found several places in AA literature and is often heard at meetings. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference